Backing the webinar by Alex Fitzgerald, Two Cards College and MTTmarket.com. I'm Assassinato. You might know me from such films as Dissecting the Donk Bet, That's a Check Raise Fool, our Card Runners, the good videos. By the way, Two Cards College, if I'm doing something such as talking for 15 minutes without showing my screen, feel free to turn on the microphone and tell me. It's okay. You don't have to worry about interrupting me. I didn't want to. I assumed, I said at the beginning, I could tell you guys could hear me, and I said, just stop me if anything's wrong. But sorry about that, guys. That's more my fault. I'm not blaming anyone. That was my fault. I should have double-checked that was running. I got a little thing. It said, like, screen share. I assumed it said it was sharing the screen. That was my fault, guys. Anyways, I'm Assassinato. You might know me from such films as Dissecting the Donk Bet, That's a Check Raise Fool, our Card Runners, the good videos. I am this guy. Now some of these jokes will make sense. No, I'm not the bemused African-American gentleman. I'm the white one screaming. That's me. You might have also seen me on the EPT spewing all my chips away like they were tokens for a roller coaster. Getting serious. When I'm not on the live circuit or playing high-stakes MTTs online, my main passion is running Assassinato coaching. At my firm, we offer consultation services for a client list of 1,000+ professional poker players. I've had a pretty good career in poker. For those of you just joining us, I've had a pretty good career in poker. I've done well for myself, but I really do enjoy like my consulting work and like teaching players. About 1,000 different. We have about 1,000 different clients. Professional. They usually, what that means is they make most of their money from poker, or they make a good portion of their salary from poker, and it's been a really fun and rewarding experience. Two Cards. I've decided to partner with Two Cards College as a senior coach for the pro training program. I've worked with many different players and backing groups in poker. Two Cards College is, in my unequaled experience, one of the most thoroughly educated backing houses on earth. What's most impressive is how fast players under them make money and improve. The difference in a great backing house like Two Cards College is that they understand building your career is what's most important. I discussed this a bit at the beginning, but you guys couldn't see this, so I guess I was just talking to you like it was a radio show. But the best backers really do invest in the careers of their players because they understand a locomotive that keeps going, keeps working, and that's exactly what we want. And many backing houses try to exploit their players, but Two Cards College works harder than anyone to see their players succeed. Now, players in Two Cards College move up in stakes faster than anywhere else. This is something I also I was pretty surprised because they take what I consider like a very intelligent approach, which is like very I wouldn't say conservative, but like very good at reducing risk, very good for everybody involved. Now, usually if you're going to reduce risk, you end up limiting your top side, but that's not been the case in the statistics they've sent over to me. Almost all the students double their average buy-in within a year, and many players increase their average buy-in 7 or 8 times in a year. In today's webinar, we're going to discuss 2 of the most important lessons any professional player could take in: how to stop just playing poker and instead set up a career, and how to use backing tools to put more money in your pocket right now. Now, most poker players live like a pirate, sailing whatever sea is in front of them, riding high while they're winning, and losing everything in downswings. And I couldn't resist putting that meme. And you'll notice that professional poker players who have been around for 10 years or more don't just go with the flow. A lot of us sell pieces, especially to these like big live events and stuff. We're really into that. And many of us have long-term investors. We have people who just like, hey, I don't want to keep calling you up every time you post it on a forum. I'm just going to take every piece you ever sell. We do this so we can make our job an actual career. We're just like normal people. We have normal expenses and everything like that. And, we need to have income coming in as well. Now, what we've realized through this process and what Two Cards College has capitalized on is that poker is not unpredictable. There are tools pros are using right now to increase their money steadily and securely. And I'm just going to check everything's okay because now I'm a little worried. So, we good? Everything good? Two Cards College, are we good? Can you see everything okay? Two Cards College, write to me in the chat right now. Right now. Yeah, everything's good? Okay. Feel free to get on the microphone and scream at me like, Alex, you're talking and we can't see anything. Anything like that. Now, anyhow, poker is not unpredictable. There are tools pros are using right now to increase their money steadily and securely. And did you know that with the right approach, you can double your bankroll guaranteed in a year? I know that sounds like something like it sounds like a lot of promises people have made to you and they haven't had the best of intentions in mind, but like we're going to actually show you the math that's behind this. And I really emphasize this back when you guys couldn't see my screen. I'm going to emphasize it again. But you could buy that new car, you could help your parents retire, or whatever else you think would be a really good goal. And I think this is really important because I always discuss with my students, you have to have a point when you're playing poker. You got to have something you're working for. You have to have something personally meaningful. In my case, you know, a lot of people ask me, like, how have you been in poker in 10 years? And I always tell them, like, honestly, it's not talent. I don't think I have nearly as much talent as many of my friends. I see them playing poker, and it's really surprising, like, how good they are. But one thing I do have is I have a disabled mother, and she can't work, so she needs a little help. And you know, that's one of those things, like, I have this, you know, if you have this goal of, like, something you really need to, like, take care of, and it could be something like, we brought up a car earlier. My wife, recently, she drives everywhere for her job. She's a physical therapist, and she has to visit a number of different clinics to help people. And she had a car for a while that was just really hard for her to drive, and I really wanted a new car. Now, the way I did this when I was younger was I would just, you know, I would play and hopefully I went on a good run. And, you know, if it didn't happen, it didn't happen. And I couldn't really take care of the people I loved, or I couldn't take care of myself sometimes. And it was a lot tougher, but that's not something you really need anymore because you can double your bankroll guaranteed in a year if you know what you're doing, which you're going to know how to do at the end of this. Now, what we're going to be talking about today is called substance backing. There is a belief that backing is for players who went bust to get back in the game. In actuality, backing is a multifunctional tool that accomplishes a myriad of goals. It's not just the 50-50, I'll back you until you get back up on your feet, kid. It's for successful people, it's for beginning players, it's for a lot of different players. It all depends on how you use it. There's a good way to use it, there's a bad way to use it, just like fire. See, fire in the corner? That was clever. Good players and backing. There is also a common belief that a good player does not need backing because it is better to play low and buy-in tournaments on your own than expensive ones with a backer. I used to believe this until I was proven dramatically wrong by mathematics and experience. And it's also believed a lot of times that a good player will move up in stakes on his own by grinding a bankroll and lower buy-in tournaments. This was much easier to do back in the day, and a lot of the guys who are going to tell you this are guys like me who have been in poker for a very long time. Maybe they haven't played lower stakes these days. It's a little more difficult, and taking on help is really advisable. Now, these arguments that these people make no sense. This analysis assumes that the game of poker is a straight low variance climb up the stakes, hindered only by the state of your current bankroll, and we all know that's ridiculous. Most poker players, myself included, will incur large downswings. I'll have downswings always. And I've had downswings myself. I shared as I was going through this before. I've made a very good living for myself over the last 10 years. I've been very stable. I believe Assassinato coaching is prevalent because my advice works for thousands of people, and it's worked for me for over a decade. But I've had downswings. I've had downswings of $100,000 4 times. And due to increased spending and emergency or negative variance, you don't even have to lose at poker. Any cut in our operating capital means a significant dip to our wealth creation. The less money we have, the less money we can invest, the less money we can make. Now remember, backing is not a way to fix a financial leak. If you got a problem, you got a problem. It's not gonna, if you're just spewing money, like backing generally is not gonna save your butt. Backing is a way to transfer most of your risk to a third party by sharing a small part of potential profits. It's a beautiful business model because one thing I love about poker is everybody can win. If people are just playing poker for fun, I really hope that they're playing with money they can afford to lose. But if they're just playing for fun, I mean, to me, it's like no different than a movie. Actually, it's better than a movie because a lot of movies in the theaters these days are just terrible. I hate the CGI fests. And but like you go into a dark theater, you watch something that looks like it was made for just a special effects showcase, and then you get out and you haven't talked to anyone, you haven't done anything. And whereas in poker, you might actually get to meet people from different fields, and you get to play a game that fights off Alzheimer's, for example. It's a very strategic game, and it helps you think. And those people who play for fun get something out of it, and people who play for money get obviously something out of it. And now the investors can get something out of it because you want to make consistent money. You're one person, and the individual swings that anyone can deal with can be very tremendous in your life. Someone could take a bunch of that risk for a small percentage of the funds, and this person gets a lot out of it because a person like me, let's say I want to invest in a bunch of players. I don't want to invest in a couple players. I've done that before. That's a very, it's a very high variance route because obviously 3 guys can go through a lot of variance. But if you spread out your investment over a number of people, if you spread your investment out on a number of people, you're going to be getting much more return on hours of play time you could have never done yourself, and you're happy to pay for those risks that will eventually occur from these players. Now let's look at some examples where backing could have saved our heroes. While I grab a quick drink of water, because this is my second time here. And by the way, if you guys normally listen to my radio show or something like that, you might be noticing I'm using like a presenter's voice today, and that might sound funny to you. That's because my voice goes out if I just speak like my typical accent. It starts like wearing my throat, so I'm trying to speak from the gut. So try not to laugh at me too much, as I sound a little more as I try to do my impression of a president while I speak. But anyway, let's say in our first case, a player moves up to new stakes. Sorry, I'm paranoid. We good? 2 Cards College, we good? We good? Everybody seeing everything okay? Everybody good? 2 Cards College, tell me in the chat right now. 2 cards, we good? Yep, we're good. Okay, I'm going to stop doing that every 10 minutes. Okay, I'm really paranoid, sorry. But anyhow, let's say a player moves up to new stakes. Not every poker player with a 30% ROI in $10 ABI tournaments has at least a 15% expectation that should in $30 ABI tournaments. Many times a player cannot even beat the new limit for $1. Forgetting that, any player needs time to adjust to the new limit, studies opponents, and respond to trends. It's not easy moving up in stakes. We're dealing with opponents we know nothing about, and we're unable to put in as much volume because you probably got to play less tables. You have to play less tables to really get the feel for it, so you just can't log the type of hands and hours that you normally would have been putting in. And it is a great idea in this case to let a backer share some of the financial risk. Now let's say a player goes on a downswing, and this happens all the time. PokerDope.com shows the probabilities of downswings in a very plain way. On the next page, you can see a probability model of playing with the expected plus 25% ROI for 1 month. So here we go. Here's the distribution over all tournaments as set by PokerDope. And this shows you the percentile of how often things that happen. Now let me explain this. As we can see, even for a good player, there is a 10% chance of losing more than 90 buy-ins. You can see that. You can see that down there at the bottom left. And there's a 10% chance of losing more than 90 buy-ins and having 1 losing month out of 3. Now, obviously, the odds are still pretty good in your favor, but you know, if you need the money in some way, or you're trying to build a career, you're just trying to like prove to your spouse like, hey, this is a real thing. It doesn't look that good when that stuff happens. And remember, that is happening to a winning player. That is not happening to Joe Schmo off the street. And this case also can include unusually large spending that a player commits for one reason or another. Now, the player only has a few options when this happens. Continue playing higher than his proper bankroll management would allow. This is what most people like to do. This increases your chances to 20% or higher of your bankroll's just complete decimation a lot of the times. And you can either move down in stakes, which, as we discussed, means you're going to be making less money, or you can start selling stakes, which we're about to prove is how you make the most money out of this set of options. Now, let's say a player wants to play a higher buy-in. This is another delicate case that could be solved by what we're discussing today. Let's say a player wants to play 1,000 plus average field size and some weaker fields and higher buy-in tournaments where he can perform with a higher ROI. Typical examples are the 320 Wednesday Grand and Sunday Million. Despite the high buy-in in the field is very weak, even $40 to $50 buy-in players have a positive expectation in it. The problem with these events is that it is a weekly tournament with no analogous events. It is close to impossible to play the tournament enough to acquire a decent sample. If a player plays, this is crazy. I heard of something like this before, but I'd never seen it graphed. I mean, we all had our suspicions, but if a player plays the Sunday Million every week for 10 years, the chance of showing a profit will be less than 50%. That is staggering, even a winning player. And you can see it right there, right at the 50% mark. You can see a lot of winning players post like very small wins, and only a very small percentile get like really huge wins. So like grabbing all of your action in these majors might not be the greatest option because you can see only a very small percentage of those players like come through. Now let's refute some of these arguments with our wizard-like mathematics. Let us separately analyze the skeptic's argument that it is better to play low buy-in tournaments on your own than high buy-in ones with a backer. This argument is refuted by very simple mathematical calculations. The table here illustrates the difference between the player's profit in the case of playing $20 average buy-ins with a 40% ROI on his own and a $50 ABI with 25% ROI with backers. You can see the player that, you can see that the player that's playing a $20 ABI because he's like, hey man, I'm going to keep on my action. You know, I got a huge edge in this. His profit is the player's investment with 100%, an ROI of 40%. The player's profit is $2,800. Now, a guy playing an average buy-in of $50 and his ROI is 25%, and he's selling at a markup, even if he's, you know, only keeping 40% of himself, he's making a lot more money because he just gets to pocket that markup, variance free. Now, this table shows that the player would, this is insane, okay? This is insane. The table shows that the player would earn 25% more being staked than playing on his own if he maintains a 25% ROI. Note that if his ROI drops to 15%, almost threefold, that one's down here, he would still earn no less, and even with a negative 20% ROI, he will make money. And that's down here. So check this out. So he has a negative 20% ROI here, average buy-in 50%, but because he's selling percentages of himself and he gets to pocket with the markup, this bad month is not such a bad month at all. Actually, he gets $385, which obviously, you know, is not it's not a ton of money, but like compared to being really in the red, it's much better. It's much better just to pocket some cash, pay some bills. Now, notice in these cases, we have a much larger profits while having slightly less ROI. We have a radical decrease in risk when in a downswing, and we get playing experience at higher stakes. I didn't know any of this stuff intuitively, but like I came from a population of players that were all coming into poker at the same time, and I took the risks. I took backing. I played higher stakes tournaments, and I was much more adjusted to higher stakes tournaments than many other people were by their 21st birthday. And it really paid off in the coming years, especially as different poker markets opened up, as they're about to be happening again. Now, let's say a player needs steady income. Excuse me. Oftentimes, due to a family or other obligations, a player must have a steady monthly income. Or possibly he wants to accumulate a certain amount of money by a certain date. For instance, to move up in stakes, buy a car, or own a house. This one is the most important. Most of the time, in this case, players do not even think of the opportunities that playing poker opens for them. Because if you have a family and you go, I want to go play cards for a living, a lot of people go, hey, what? What'd you say? But selling stakes is practically the only way to guarantee yourself a steady income at a certain level. And it's only going to take a few months of having a steady income for most people to change their tune and to also make sure your family feels a little bit better about your career choice. Now, most poker players think they should play on their own if they can afford it. This is wrong. Let's talk some numbers now. Let us say we have a player who plays 600 average field size and $50 average buy-in tournaments. His expected ROI is 25%. His bankroll is $15,000. He plays 300 tourneys a month, which means his total buy-in sum is exactly $15K. Thus, his monthly expectation is $37.50. Money, money, money. In addition, the player's monthly spending is $17.50. Pretty low expenses. It's but obviously in many of you I know are in London or a lot of different parts of Europe. Like $17.50 would be a dream. But okay, and let's say it's $17.50 and its reduction is highly undesirable. This person does not want to spend less than $17.50. They're cutting it close. All right. This guy also plans on moving up in stakes in no later than 6 months. So he's got to move up. He's got to keep paying his bills. And to do that, to move up, he needs a reserve of at least $4,000 for coaching and to compensate for a possible downswing. The probabilities distribution of different wins, losses over a month would look like this. And again, you can see 30% of the time in the month he's losing. And you can see a very small percentage of the time he's just shooting through the roof, according to Poker Dope. Now, here's the translation. There's a 30% chance that the player will lose money and a 70% chance that he will win. There's a 10% chance to lose more than $4,000. Now, that's pretty significant, guys. On the other hand, there is a 10% chance to win more than $12.50. There's a 10% chance to lose over a third of the bankroll in a single month, taking into account monthly expenses. Now, a third that's really eating into your operating capital. This will lower his ABI even more, especially with the next $17.50 deducted. Don't forget the next month he's got to pay those bills, so his average buy-in is going to go down, then it's going to go down again a lot of these times. Now, here's the 6-month graph. As you can see, a little more likely he's going to come out ahead. Now, going negative. Even disregarding the fact that the player will likely lower his average buy-in after an unfortunate month, we're totally forgetting that even though he's losing 30% of the time in the first month and he's got to withdraw expenses, we're just assuming he keeps playing, right? Which is not realistic, but we're gonna say he gets through it, okay? The probability of going negative in cash flow only by playing is really high. Now look at the red line in the next graph. It indicates expenses taken out. The yellow line shows the probability of acquiring $4,000 at the end of this period. So here's the red line. You can see more. It's getting a little tougher. And the yellow line, it's taking out money to have that at the end, a little tougher. And you can see the yellow line right there on the 30%. Now here's the markup difference, which means 30%, it's just nothing, and then you can see 30% of the time the red line's not doing that much either. Thus, our player's goal will be fully achieved with a 70% probability, and you've got to ask yourself, are you really, this is a 6-month graph, oops, do you really want to have a 1 out of 3 shot of going off, and not achieving your goals? And his bankroll will not decrease with an 80% probability. 20% of the time it does decrease. 1 time out of 5. Now let us look no money, negative. Now let us look at the same probabilities graph under the assumption that the player sells 55% of himself with a 1.2 markup, which is a really common markup for small average field size tournaments at his regular stakes. You can get a 1.2 markup. You can get a 1.2 markup even in some bigger events, and to get it in these small average field size tournaments is a lot easier. Now in this one, the blue dots mark the player's profit when he sells half of his action with a markup, with the corresponding playing profit. The green dots mean his bankroll will not decrease, even considering the living expenses with a probability of 92%. So that's the green dots is when we put in the living expenses. And the purple dots will be when we're selling markup and he's accumulating an extra 4,000. The probability here is 79% that he can do that. That is really significant. Now, as you can see, the dots are much more likely to be in the profit, way less likely to be losing, much more likely you're going to achieve your goals. You are giving up a bit in the like 5-4 percentile. One time out of 20, you're giving up a big upswing, but you're giving away, you are acquiring like the 30% of the times you would have come up negative given your parameters. You're getting rid of that in a very large sense. Now, the conclusion we can derive from this is using the described model of selling stakes with a markup, the player has $20,000 expected profit instead of $2,250. Your expected profit over that entire graph only goes down by 10%. However, you have a 2.5 times lower chance of going negative. That is really big if you have some goals or you're trying to make this a career. And you have a 1.5 times lower of a chance of failing to reach his goal. That's kind of a double negative, but it's a 1.5 times more likely you'll reach your goal. Now, the reality is we're not, now this, just so you guys don't think we're just going off on like everything is better, everything is beautiful if you sell stakes. We're not implying it is advantageous for every player to sell stakes in a given situation. However, if there is a goal to accumulate a certain sum by a certain date, backing allows the player to significantly increase the stability of his results while only slightly lowering the expected profits. If the player uses third-party funds, the probability of an isolated downswing and consequent lowering stakes drops dramatically in several dozens of times, like 24 times, 36 times, 48 times better. This makes the dotted graph very much independent of the isolated downswings, as you can see there. Additionally, note that I purposefully examined the case of low variance tournaments. If you add 1,000 plus average field size tournaments to the tournament schedule, this is going to make the tournament graphs, it's going to make these graphs much more chaotic. So I discussed a number of cases in which a player would benefit from backing. In those cases, we demonstrated that backing allows the player to avoid virtually any risk by giving up a modest share of the potential profit. Let us move to the second part of this webinar where I am going to tell you how exactly you should plan your career, considering your personal conditions and goals, in order to guarantee that you achieve the desired results. So this table, you guys all downloaded this table. And I'm going to go back into the lab. Oops, go back. You guys all have this table. And anyhow, and Two Cards College, you guys are hearing, seeing me okay, and everybody's got this table. And okay, you guys, I can see it in the handout, so you already got that, the career planning worksheet, it's right there. If somebody could kindly tell me in the chat, you guys can see and hear me okay, I'd really appreciate that.
Hello, yep. Alex, do you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Can you please open questions?
Yeah, sure, there's some, okay, here we go.
You see some question there.
Sure thing, yeah, okay. I should have asked you if they were allowed to ask questions. Sometimes people, okay, Alex, can you please press questions in the sidebar? Yes, I will. Okay, let's check it out. And okay, oops. 1 second, I'll be right there. Okay, we have a lot of non-questions here. John Stewart, glad you could join us. Okay, I'm gonna look for, okay, you guys are typing in the questions, not the chat, excuse me. Yes, sounds good, everything. Can you explain what is a markup? That's an excellent question. A markup is like the not the vigorous. It's a markup is like the fee that it's the fee that a backer is paying the backee for the opportunity to buy a percentage of them. So let's say I'm going to sell pieces of myself in the let's say I'm going to sell like percentages of myself in the WSOP main event. And now I feel like, well, I'm buying in for $10,000. $10,000 in my hands in the WSOP is worth a lot more than it is in most players' hands. So when I sell percentages of myself, I want to get paid a little something extra because I think my statistics in my graphs prove that their investment is a safer one, and I want to get paid on the side for that. So I sell it, let's say it's a 1.2 markup. That means you have to pay me an additional 20% in order to what it is. So if it was like you were buying 10% of me in a 10K, it was $1,000, you'd have to pay me $1,200. And okay, let's see. Okay, in Milos. And okay. Yes, markup, how is it possible because of the splits? How it is possible, Milos, is that because you are getting paid money on the side, because someone looks at your graph or we analyze you and we understand that you're a good player, and we pay you a little fee for the opportunity to buy up your action, and you get to pocket that money on the side, and that's what decreases variance considerably. And then let's see. And I think Heike Albert Tilk. Sorry, I'm sure okay. Let me just see. I'm going to see who. Sorely, okay, there it is. Showed in his video about bankroll management that the expected EV for playing tournaments with average buy-in $20 is 7,000 USD, and expected EV with average buy-in of $40 is 9,000 USD but with a lot higher variance. Yes, that's really true. Most of my investing these days comes in more like lower stakes players, mid stakes players, because, okay, you think it gets that bad at like $40. Imagine once you go to like the really high stakes, like it just gets absurd. In fact, there's sometimes I don't think, we have to obviously court like wealthy investors to get into this, but there's sometimes like I'm not sure any of my poker friends like has the bankroll to be playing some of these huge tournaments. And the ROI drops pretty fast when climbing the stakes, so the EV increase is not very big, but variance shoots up. Yeah, I think it might be a little less pronounced than what your friend there is suggesting, Heike, Mr. Tilk, but it is pretty pronounced, and that's why selling pieces is such a big deal these days. Is that so many people. So many of us like we realize like how variance ridden it is, and just being able to pocket cash on the side really assists us. And okay, I'll go through, and if I see, okay, we had one person who couldn't hear. I'm just looking where you guys are happy to listen again. I really appreciate that, guys. Sorry, guys. There's so many. Okay. Okay, and this is when you guys couldn't see me. Okay. Who decides the markup? The backer? That is decided between the backer and the player. The player throws out an offer, and the backer either takes it or they go, hey, I'll throw in some goodies if we can lower the markup, and you guys come up with a deal. Or the guy says, like, I can't do that, and then it's up to you to lower the markup or not. I sell pieces at a markup for live MTTs, but I didn't even know it was common to do so long-term for online MTTs. Hey, what's up, Carlos? Yeah, it's that's really kind of the ingenious of Two Cards College, is how it's connecting everything right now. Why do I not see the chat he's reading? Sorry, I've reloaded a third time and can now hear. I'll have to listen to the replay for what I've missed. Don't worry, we're all recorded. I think we're recording in a couple locations. Yep, I got it recorded here. Let's see. Do cash game players do the same? And if yes, how do you calculate how much the markup should be? I'm not an expert in that, so I'm not really an expert on selling in cash. Most of my work has come in tournaments. For some reason, I can't see other people's questions, and I think my text still doesn't show up to Alex. Nope, I got it. Let's see. I think we got everything. Okay, thank you guys. I'll go in. Feel free to bug me if there's at some point. Is markup better than a straight up percentage split between backer and backy? Mr. Flanagan, there's advantages and disadvantages to both. It really comes down to what it really comes down to what's more important to you. We'll get into that for just a second. But now, everybody, open up this table. Check out this table we're about to look at. And I think you guys were asking why you can't read the questions. That was because I think GoToMeeting like removes it. I think GoToMeeting like removes it. Now, anyway, we've put in some random numbers here, and each one of these columns, each one of these columns represents a quarter of the year. You can see here player investment share, percentage offered for sale. I'm going to go through to the end of this, guys, and then we're going to hang around a bit, and then we're going to talk. We're going to discuss other questions. So be sure to put into the questions folder, into the questions section, your questions, and I'll be sure to answer them. But yeah, you can see a lot of this explains itself. It actually pretty much all of it does. Player investment share, percentage offered for sell. This is the one that confuses some people. It's like, what's the rate? Like the markup. And we just discussed that right now, so you guys got us a little ahead of time. And this is the one that I've also seen trip people up. This is bankroll at the period start, and this is bankroll at the period end. You'll notice these numbers always match. This is really one of the most important ones that I see people mix up, and we're going to talk about this a bit more. Now, the columns of this table are quarters of the year, as we just said. They contained, and by the way, guys, like, there was nothing like this when I started playing poker, and guess what? There was nothing like this 5 years later, and if there was, it certainly wasn't free, and if it was free, it was usually wrong, and actually half the time we paid for it, it was wrong too. But I've vetted this. It checks out, and it's a pretty neat tool, and it helps you plan like 3 years ahead of time. So be sure, guys, take advantage of everything that's offered to you out there. The thing about today's era in poker is it's a little tougher because there's a lot of, more conscientious players, but there's so many tools out there. But if you just play with the good players but don't use the tools out there, you're taking all the negative sides of 2015 without the bountiful upsides. Now, checking this out, now they contain fixed input data that you enter, like the number of playing sessions per week. Variables which it can change and see how it affects the general outcome, like your ROI is really fascinating to change around just to see how that affects things. And there's values calculated for you automatically based on the two above. And lines 9 through 12, if you guys are looking at it right now, they refer to how much you play. You may play more or less. If you guys aren't sure how much you play, be sure to check out SharkScope and just opt in. Enter the same, and you can do that for free, I believe. And enter the amounts on your own, same as the average buy-in you're going to start with. Lines 14, 16, and 19 are the key ones. Your results will be changing depending on the change values that you enter here. So be sure to take a good look at that. And be sure to fill in the first value of line 40. This is your starting bankroll. Pretty important to put in there. Line 41 is the amount of your projected living expenses. By the way, I love that that's in there. I can't tell you how many times I've seen like little plans like this come out, and it's very obviously made for like 18-year-old kids who are like living with their parents, which, by the way, there's nothing wrong with that. If I could have lived with my parents at 18, if that had been possible, I would have done it because it does save you a lot of money. But for a lot of us, we do have expenses, and it's really nice that this is accounted for. And line 42 is your income outside of playing poker, if there's any. Everything else will get calculated for you. So the most important lines, I want you to check out on these. Your total profit from playing poker. After you enter the values, these will become your most important lines. Line 33, your total profit. Lines 35 and 36 show how the profit is distributed between the backers and the player. What you should be noticing is how much more risk that the backer is taking on. This is for people that can spread their risk around, right? But you're shifting a lot of the risk onto them. And obviously, in most cases, the players will get much more than the backers do over the long run. And line 44, the most important, this is your bankroll. And the all-important line 30, cash it in. This is the money you pocket from the markup. Absolutely variance free. Now let's look at some examples. I've gone ahead and put it together. So this is the first one I put in, and you can see it a little more clearly now. I just took a screenshot of it, and you can see this is, we vary up the ROIs. We're constantly offering up for sales 60% of ourselves. As we get a little bit more in the bankroll department, we invest a little bit more in ourselves, perhaps as we, and you can see how things are growing. And you can take a look at that. There's really so many numbers there. You guys should definitely I like to print things out. I like to mark things out. I like to try to talk with them with somebody else. It's really cool to look over these, just see how it develops. Now let's change some things up a bit. This spreadsheet shows a real steady progression with a balance of investments. Let's play around with it a bit now. Let's start by giving you a negative ROI in the third quarter. This kind of downswing happens all the time in MTTs. As we saw, sometimes 30% of the time you have a negative ROI. You think about it, 1 shot out of 3, that's pretty high. So, but does a negative ROI really mean a losing month? So here we have a slight negative month. As you can see, the backers are taking most of the risk there with the 3974, but your total profit from playing is 2534. You're still making 2K because you sold, you hedged your bets. You gave up a little of your upside, and you really hedged your bets, and it really paid off here. And it's really good that you did this, because as an independent professional, you don't have the financial resources. A lot of us don't have the financial resources that we would like to have. So it's really good we hedged our bet here, right? And you can see the backer took on the brunt of it. Now, a lot of you are going like, well, why is the bankroll at the period end 3401? That's because, remember, we still have expenses here in the 4200 part. And by the way, look at how, with very high expenses in a smaller buy-in, how we're able to sustain ourselves just through getting the markup through the rate we've been given. Now, what if you only sold 20% of yourself in this equation? Now, 20% sounded like a lot to me when I started working in this, because I'd be like, man, 20%, I don't like, I like to, I feel like I'm good. I want to keep playing. I want to, when I win something, I want to really feel like I got a lot out of it, And, but if I was selling 20% of myself, I'd feel like that's pretty significant. Well, as you can see, your total player profit from playing is negative $115, which is not the end of the world, but now you got to pay your expenses. Now you're down to $750 right there at the bottom, and now you're moving down to the $2 tournaments. It's pretty bad. With the exact same ROI, you just went from a modest winning month, a couple grand, which will get you a good living in a lot of different countries on this fine earth, and you went to pay, and you were paying your expenses, and instead now you're going to your bankroll's complete destruction. Now, where and how to sell stakes. Be sure to go home and play around with the spreadsheet yourself to make your own 3-year plan. I find this stuff to be pretty fun. Print it out, pin it up, and once you've done that, you'll probably want to sell some shares, because most of us cannot. A lot of us would just like to have winning months most of the time, even when we're losing, which is pretty tremendous. There are 2 different ways you can go about selling shares. The first one is to do it on your own. The second one is to turn to the professionals. Now, if we do it on our own, from all the backing platforms for selling on your own, I recommend MTT Market. There's been a real gap in the market, and it's really not been filled correctly lately. MTT Market, I've been in touch with them for a long time, and they've really, I've known some of the employees, partners, that for a couple years now. They're some of my favorite, most diligent students, and they really came into this from a player's perspective, and I think they've built the best thing for the player. And I think that was pretty smart business sense, because if you build the player, if you build it for the players come, it builds up the site. And you can sell stakes in different places, but I would like to highlight the key advantages of selling on MTT Market. First off, they have the fastest sellout statistics. I've had to sell pieces of myself in a lot of different places, and you end up playing like the catch-up game. It's like you post on Facebook, you post on Twitter, you post on 2+2, and like, they kind of get around you. Other people are, you don't really have the tools to like check people out or whatever. Stakes just sell out on MTT market. They're sold quickly. And there's much more favorable treatment of the low stakes players because, as we discussed, as our friend discussed in the questions, there's pretty high ROI with a lot less variance in the low stakes players, and a lot of the investors on MTT market understand that. On many other platforms, the backers are used to buying from the players with a name. I think on many other platforms, it's just a egotistical spot for a lot of people to just go, I got a piece of so-and-so. And it really, those are, a lot of those people play like they pay bloated markup just to be part of that. Whereas these guys a lot of times are like real investors that really like want to help you develop your career because they know it's good for them as well. And they buy from the unknown and profitable players as well. They also have useful tools. This is really cool. They have a hand history database analysis and statistics analysis. Proprietary tools. I always have trouble with that word. I'm not sure why. No one else has these. A lot of other people, it's just going to be like, do I know you? No? Okay, goodbye. Here you can throw this through, and if you're vetted, you're vetted. That's it. To sell stakes on MTT market, we care about this system so much. We think it's so good for everybody. You must complete the automatic hand history database and statistics analysis. This allows low stakes players to be noticed, and also it'll help you locate your own leaks. So you guys can come back and keep hammering it if you choose to do so. In addition, it's a constantly developing product. The system they have makes automatic calculations and instructs how much a player should pay to every backer. You will not be confused with all the records and do not need to calculate the transfer amounts. This was the biggest downfall of a lot of these sites, is that the guys were not keeping. I knew some really good people who just didn't keep their records straight, and it became this huge mess, everybody blaming everybody. Soon MTT Market is even going to introduce a new payment system, allowing a player to get stakes from a dozen backers or pay a dozen backers in a single transaction. Everything is calculated for you. You send off, very soon you're going to be sending off one transfer. It's really the nirvana as far as this. Now, I really do personally believe in trusting professionals with helping you build a career. I'm not a big like poker is a talent thing. I don't really think there's such a thing as talent. If you look into, now that sounds like ridiculous, but if you look into, like a lot of people say, like David Beckham is a talent, and it's like, well, David Beckham used to go to a park and he wouldn't play with the other kids. He would practice one type of kick for 6 hours. You know, they said Mozart was a prodigy. Well, Mozart started composing at age 6. So he wrote his first masterpieces at 24. That boy got in a lot of practice. And Michelangelo, another guy who was called a prodigy, he said, he was like, if you guys knew how hard I had to, he didn't say you guys, because obviously it doesn't translate quite like that. But if he said, if you guys knew how hard I had to work to attain my mastery, it wouldn't seem so wonderful at all. And if you dig into a lot of, and there's a lot of people that go like, well, what about like Kenyan long distance runners, man? It's just, they're just born with that talent. Well, what they found out when they studied that, and now you're starting to see like Ethiopians come into long distance running, there's a reason for this. What they found is it was something like 35% of the best long distance runners in the world came from one spot in Kenya. And it wasn't 95% of the country didn't produce anything, but this 5% spot did. You know what they found? They were incredibly high altitude, so their red blood cells got used to taking in oxygen much more proficiently than many other people's hearts. And to get to school, they had to run 6 miles every day back and forth. So you multiply 12 miles, and sorry, I guess that's like 18 kilometers for those of you who don't have the barbaric United States system. If you think about it, you know, you're running almost 20 kilometers 5 days a week for decades. You're in the conditions that are going to increase it. it's not talent. It was hard work in the right conditions. And studying in stable growth is so important because in poker, there is a physical aspect to like long distance running. You know, I'm guessing if you put my chubby white ass up there in Ethiopia to run around for 10 years, I'm guessing I'm not going to be a long distance runner. But in poker, I find many of the highest stakes players that I get to work with, they'll even tell you, like, I'm not like as bright as a lot of people think I am. I just work really hard. I think I have to work much harder than most other people to attain this. And back in the day, there was a real stigma against, like, I remember when I used to say, I'm studying poker, I'm not playing right now because I'm not feeling good about my game, right? And there was a real stigma against it. It was seen as, poker was kind of seen as like, it was kind of seen as like sex or dancing or driving. You were either good at it or you weren't. You were either born with it or you weren't. Now these communities, there's been communities for years, like with the training videos and stuff, but when there's like actual financial interest and everybody's working together to make more money, it's a collective and everybody wins, there's much more motivation to get it in, and they're really getting it in. And they're hiring a lot of the best guys. They're hiring like Ape Styles, who I think is like the best online MTT player in the world, and they're really offering tools that I wish I had years ago. You have no idea what it would have meant to me. And like, we're going to talk about selling percentages versus full backing, but like, they're not just helping you like get better. They're giving you, like, they're letting you like even out your life by taking away like the like really big downswings, and they're helping you get better in the same time. Like, that's it's so much easier these days to become like a great poker player if you just put in the work. It's all about work ethic. A lot of people ask me, I mean, I've told this to a lot of people, they're like, how'd you get to where you are? And they always expect, like, well, there was this guy, who showed me the ropes. And it's like, well, no, not really. I mean, there were helpful people, but a lot of my advancement was like, get to work at 8, get done at 6. And obviously it was a real blessing that I got to do this as a job. But when I didn't do this as a job, when I was a security guard, it was just like, get done with work, start playing poker, start studying poker, do that for 10 hours. And if I had these tools to like, because what almost always knocked me out was the downswings. And as you can see, they happen like 10 to 30% of the time, which is a pretty significant amount. Like, if you imagine 10 Dixie cups in front of you and 3 of them had a ball underneath, you would not be surprised if you picked, if you had 10 upside down Dixie cups in front of you and you put a bouncy ball underneath 3, you would not be shocked if you pulled up one of the cups. It would seem pretty normal. There was almost a 1 chance out of 3 of that happening. But when you you're trying to make it, in 1 time out of 3, you're just getting wiped out, and somebody will help you make 90, sometimes more % of the same upside as far as expectation while taking, as you saw, like the complete downswing away in some of our examples. That is tremendous. Like, I almost wish I could like go through this again, because like doing this when I was younger was just way harder. It was just way harder. For like the real conscientious, like hard-working student now, there's so many tools. Now let's talk about the differences between selling percentages and full backing. For those who want to sell their action and invest their own funds, Two Cards College will buy part of the action between 50 and 80% with a markup. As a rule, the markup will be between 1.05 to 1.1. Markup is around 1.12 is also possible, only for the very strong players. These terms are below those offered by the market, and it allows them to turn a profit, us to turn a profit. This is how it is realized from a technical point of view. Player places an offer on mttmarket.com, but with a markup. Sorry, sometimes I abbreviate the same thing in my shorthand. But the markup's like 1.15, 1.19. Outside investors buy stakes with this markup. We buy out whatever is not reserved. So you're guaranteed to sell out in this way, okay? By third-party investors. The player, however, receives only his part of this market markup as provided for in his contract. The rest is payment for training. So notice though, if you stop selling because they're not developing you correctly, you're not going to keep selling, and they stop getting paid for training. So they're taking risk here too. The player will never go into makeup. The advantage of this is the player never goes into makeup. Every session is played from a clean slate. The example that we showed you on the spreadsheet also showed that it showed a player that was managing his own investment and buy-ins. If he gets a good score, he's able to invest more in his action or possibly move up when he feels it's correct or when he feels the market is going to buy it up, as opposed to other forces deciding for you. Players get stability also. Even if the player only breaks even, he still makes money. This means that we can increase players' buy-in level based on his skill, not on the availability of funds. There is nothing more frustrating than knowing you're good enough for a game and just having bad month after bad month. By the way, it is possible to have 1 out of 3 happen to you twice in a row in just 2 months, and you're having a bad time and you can't move up and it's going to take months to rebuild. You can get rid of all of this and turn those 2 months into winning months here. Now, full backing. Full backing operates on the following model. 50% is covered by offers with makeup through MTT Market, as described above. For the remaining 50% of action, we sign with a player a standard contract with makeup. 50-50 for a year, or 70-30, or 65-35 in our favor for 1 or 2 months. That's especially if they're taking a risk with you. Note that in this case, our criteria for the player are higher. And a lot of people won't even change the terms. They'll just turn you down because they don't want to be flexible. So it is a nice caveat. And it does give you the experience to move up your terms after a month or two. Now, what's different about this model is the player, in fact, receives a salary represented by rakeback that always belongs to the player. You get to pocket your rakeback. That is not normal in a lot of different places. I know personally with my investors, I throw the makeup back in. The rakeback. And up to 5% from the total buy-in due to markup is also pocketed by the player. That's really nice because pretty much in every backing operation, people need money at some point, and it's real awkward, figuring out all the different arrangements that could come from that. But if you just get to pocket consistent salary, it's on you to save it. And a lot of you guys who are hard workers already know how to do that, so it really does help. Together with the rakeback, this will add up to about 8% of the total buy-in. That's not nothing. And a quarter of this is profit as a bonus. The training then after that is a free gift. The bottom line is we have 150 players studying in Two Cards College. Mark this, none of them has lost his bankroll. All of our players are growing in stakes. Some of them have increased their average buy-in 7 or 8 times. This is a result of a high-quality coaching and a proper approach to building a career. Thank you guys for attending. This has been Two Cards College and MTT Market and Alexander Fitzgerald, aka Assassinato, with backing the webinar. I will be right back here in a second to answer questions, but if you guys will excuse me, I need to use the restroom. I'll be right back. All right, guys, I'll be back in the questions. 1 second. Excuse me. Excuse me, guys. My voice finally went. There it is. Let's check it out. Thank you guys all for attending, by the way. I really appreciate that. Where did I put the questions? 1 second, everybody. I seem to have placed the questions somewhere odd. That is so like me. 1 second. Dashboard, no. Oops, there's the end of the slideshow. Where are the questions? Huh. Aha. There we go. All right. Okay. In what format is the training provided to the player? Pretty much everything. Pretty much everything you can imagine. They've discussed with me all the different training options, and they're really looking into everything right now. How many attendees? 100 plus. Is this backing available for U.S.-facing sites? I'll let them answer that. What I think you could tweet at them. What type of training is provided? Database analysis, one-on-one videos. I believe all of those are going to be. And they do a lot of like personal like group coaches and stuff like that. I've been really they worked first in Russia, and I was really like one of my favorite webinars I've done recently was like working with all these like small groups, because you can tell there's really like the way they structure it really promotes a culture of like learning. Does MTT Market offer the coaching for mixed games or just no limit hold'em MTTs? I believe it's for the 2 cards. And is this webinar going to be publicly available? Yes, I do believe. Hello, everyone. Thanks for the great webinar you're putting on for all of us and us low-limit MTT players, Alex. Thank you, Jordan. I really appreciate that, man. Thank you for tuning in. Be sure to follow me at the Assassinato on Twitter. We got tons of free stuff for you guys. It's really cool. And I like breaking it down because this is one of the few businesses in life, you know, you can really make it, and everybody wins. When is going to be the next webinar? No idea, man. How likely will a player with ABI $5 benefit of your personal coaching? I assume you are Latvian. With an ABI $5, I could definitely help you quite a bit. I have something I use with everyone. But I would, I think it's a little too expensive to go with me. I think you could get a lot of data out of like, you could get a lot of data out of forums or like a very modestly priced trading website. And hey, Alex, how are you? I just applied for an MTT Market account today. Very cool. Can only play a few Sundays now. Any luck you think for me with investors for off-peak hours? As an investor, I always am interested in guys that are doing off-peak hours because there's a lot of money to make off of them. I was really interested in Australian players that play daytime schedules for a while because just nobody good was playing those schedules. So yeah, I definitely think there's a lot of potential. Excuse me, guys. I just did a podcast and then I started doing this, so losing it. Hey, got a question for a player like me who can have a role and been successful 8 years as semi-pro with a $55 average buy-in but want to go pro. Do you think continuing that way is possible or getting back like that would be much better? I think since you have some experiences, you can figure out how much to invest in yourself at what times, especially with this spreadsheet. So I think you should sell pieces and, you know, get the graphs and get the database analysis and everything. I personally thank you for your chapter in Jonathan Little's book, which is really interesting, by the way. Thank you, Daniel. Really appreciate that. Hello, Alexi. What is the distance in the tournament can be considered average in your opinion? I don't know what that means. What is the distance in the tournament can be considered average in your opinion? I almost got it, but I'm not quite sure. Do you have to sign up for a long-term backing, or can you do month-to-month? I'm going to let them answer that. What would you say is an ideal sample size to judge a player's true ROI? You know what, that's really hard to know. Like, you get a good idea after 1,000, but you really kind of want more than that. And, excuse me, Thank you for this webinar, Alex. This is my first webinar. I plan on attending your future webinars as it is a great way to learn. Regarding backing, is there a minimum ROI backers are looking for? It depends on what risk level the players want to take, or what kind of investments. Sometimes myself, I take pieces of very even though they have like a low ROI, but they're like starting out. If I just like the guy's attitude, I'll put some money down. Just because I think it's a good investment, especially if the guy's attitude is good. And some people don't like that, so it's really up to the individual investors. The reason I asked was because I just decided to switch to MTTs, and I have no idea which materials are poor, average, good for MTTs, and I don't know what HUD setup would be the most appropriate. The Assassinato is the most appropriate, obviously, but no, I'm just kidding, guys. I do have a HUD though, but it's pretty high tech, and you do need node caddy and hold a manager. I would get for like introductory like tournament materials. I would start with the Kill Everyone books. Don't take it into an airport because it'll be pretty embarrassing. I would get like Kill Phil is like a really good beginner's book, and it's just like with these hands and these stacks you can do this. This is the absolute equilibrium. Kill Everyone and the Razor's Edge go into like how you can change things up a bit more. I really love Ape Styles' videos on card runners, and if you sign up on card runners with promo code free month, all capital letters, free month, you get 2 months for only $30. So, and I really, Ape Styles has videos there. I also have videos there if you like my teaching style. I have many like webinar style videos there, and I also have like just hand history reviews. Alexander, yo, what's good, Alex? Alex, you suggest that maybe the people who not got a huge bankroll should buy shares at the same time as selling. I think buying shares is a little more higher variance, but like, yeah, it's I think it's cool to like spread across your investments, and it definitely for like small buy-ins. It's also just kind of fun, you know what I mean? It's one of those things like if you lose $5 or $10, like obviously going that small is pretty small, but like sometimes like the investment, like if you can afford to lose it and you like the guy, and or maybe you just talk with the guy and it's like, hey, I want to get some money out of teaching this guy. Yeah, you can put down a little money, but don't put in a lot because you should let the big bankrolls handle the big variance. Awesome, thanks for answering my question. Good luck, keep on crushing. Thank you, Nathan. Alex, do you know a good SNG not 180s backing site? I do not off the top of my head. Alex, thanks for this cast. Can you tell us what ROI is for the real average buy-in? I'm sorry, let me read that again. How much time will it take to get up from average buy-in 10 to 8? Well, that if I start to learn at MTT market, that varies. That really, Pavel, it really comes down to your work ethic. What ROI is for the real average buy-in at 100 at this time? Like $100 buy-in tournaments. I find like really good players have like 30% ROIs. 40% is like really good, and like a good player has like a 20% ROI in hundreds. And yeah, it's all about how often you want to work. Now, some of our guys over a year have increased their buy-ins like 8 times. I've seen that happen with a lot of guys. I saw a guy who's playing like $10 tournaments get up to like playing the majors like very quickly, but he also worked his ass off. He was that kid in every class who knew the answer to the question, but he was so modest. He was like, I know the answer to this question, but could you explain it to me in this way? Because I was trying to get a full grasp on it. If you're that kid, like the sky's the limit. How do I establish a valid tournament history to attain backing? You got to play small stakes. Play the stakes you can afford with your recreational money. Take it seriously. Treat it like a job. And yeah. What's the most difficult MTT on the interwebs? I don't know off the top of my head. Let's say it's not one of the high buy-ins ones because they get a lot of. I think the 100R still is. I think the 100 rebuy, 200 rebuy, because usually it's just me and my friends like throwing coolers at each other. It is not the Super Tuesday. The Super Tuesday gets a lot of bad players. What ROI can a decent player expect in $10 ABI and $20 ABI in stars? 50% is really good, and like 40% is like fine. there's obviously some people that are way beyond that, but like it's different. Uh, for example, if I play average buy-in $5 MTTs, when will I start to notice difference in average players' play style in terms of skill? I don't know how, in other words, to put it. No, don't worry, man. I'm trying to figure it out. When will I need to make big adjustments in my own play style? Every single day, you should be adjusting your play style. Your only goal is to become a better player today than you were yesterday. You probably won't have to change that much at like $5 buy-ins, $10 buy-ins. Just because most of the players kind of play very similar, and you can play some serious tables at those limits. But every day you should be like looking for, and you should make your plays very player dependent. I would really work on that HUD. I have an article called "What Do These Numbers Mean?" If you look up Poker Headrush, by the way, you guys should check out pokerheadrush.com. That's my private blog. We got a lot of funny stuff on there. There's also rap battles and funny, like me yelling about like the price of a cup of coffee and stuff like that. And then, anywho, but I have an article, What Do These Numbers Mean? PokerHeadrush.com. It's an introduction to the HUD. Also on Card Runners, I did like a 3-part series on how to use the HUD. A lot of people love that. You're not only such a beast when it comes to poker and great to hang out on Twitch and watch your Poker 5s. I appreciate that, man. Really cool to hear you just have fun when you play poker and talk about it. Just complimenting you and saying it's very refreshing to a lot of us. You and Jonathan Little are among my top faves for coaches. I really appreciate that, man. Salute. Jonathan Little is like a fantastic coach. To be mentioned in the same sense as him is a real honor. And yeah, I mean, poker is fun. It's like, no doubt about it, it's a tough job. But like it is very fun. It's changed my entire life, and it changed it through hard work. You know what I mean? And like that feels really good to you change your life through hard work. And it's just so cool to see these tools are available for you guys. Because like what always used to take me out was the big downswings and like the depression that comes with it and all that stuff. And this is a way you can negate a lot of that. And I think a lot of you guys want to. I think a lot of you guys want to make that trade-off. I've been playing a lot of tournaments for the past 10 years. I've kept personal records. I'm not clear how to transfer this information to the web to obtain backing. How would make my claims be validated? You can get your database analyzed on the site. That'll let us know. This is pretty cool because even if your results aren't reflecting it, if we look at your database and go, this guy plays pretty well, that'll help you. And also you can get your Shark Scope statistics or OPR. What is the difference in ROI between 10 ABI and 20 ABI? Probably not that much. 10 ABI, like 50 to 75%, and I don't know, 20 ABI, I guess like 40 to 55. Is there a video on mttmarket.com showing how to upload hand history for PT4? I only found it for HEM2 and it isn't the same. I do not know. I'm talking about live tournaments at a land-based casino. It certainly doesn't hurt that you have those records, and we could see like you've actually put time in. If you have your taxes too, then it's been verified by another authority. Thanks for answering the questions. I think you are the most front-coming poker player I've seen. I will take everything you have suggested. At what stage should I consider private coaching from Assassinato to King? Thank you, man. I think like the 50s is, I mean, I can help you at like 20s and 30s, but like a lot of the material is out there already to help you get the basics. I think like 50s and beyond is when I can really help you do well. When will we find the webinar up later? I am not sure. Maybe Two Cards College would like to answer that. Thanks for answering. Thank you, Levi, for coming in. Anyways, guys, I got to run. One more question. Hey, Alex, thanks for the unique look and straight talk on backing. If you feel you can't play the minimum of 350 MTTs in a month, can you still apply for backing and school at Two Cards College? I'd write them or tweet them. I think you can also, I mean, just selling the pieces also puts a lot of, if you go about it. Anyway, let's say I'm a 25% ROI player over 20K sample size. What chance do I have of getting better than 50-50, and how much better? There's a great chance. You've already shown like real willingness, Brendan. Yeah. Which would be worse, to be seen in an airport with Kill Everyone, or to be seen at a rap battle with How to Rap? I think How to Rap would be. Oh my God, that would be a hilarious. That would be a hilarious thing to do. Oh my God, that would be so. Like I just walk into the battle and pull that out. That sounds like some don't flop stuff. That's a genius idea, man. Who is, in your opinion, the best MTT player? Online, I believe it's Ape Styles. I think Mormon is so close. I totally respect people who say it's Mormon. Live, I think it's Phil Hellmuth or Daniel Negreanu. I think more Negreanu. All right, guys. I got to go eat lunch. Lunch is ready. Thanks, Chance. Had an awesome day hanging out and getting coached by you, Alex. Appreciate it, Jordan. Good luck in your MTTs and games, and good luck to everybody. It was a good time. Take care.